I'm really particularly obsessed with Scientology. It's so fascinating. It's just a never-ending a font of amazingness. The stuff that goes on in Scientology, and trying to figure out how people get roped into this and how they stay with it. And I see so many parallels with the new trans activism as it's gotten more and more literal and more anti-science and more magical in its beliefs and feelings. And also the tactics that trans activists use to keep everyone in line are the same as Scientologists. And in Scientology, there's something called enfeta, which is that anything online, any criticism of the church is declared terrible for your mental health to even be exposed to. So you have to protect yourself by never letting yourself ever see the other side's points of view. And the more powerful a critique of Scientology is, the more dangerous it is, and the more you have to stay away from it. And you're seeing this with J.K. Rowling's statement. It's so very moving and so very compassionate. And that's exactly why all these people are saying, this is so dangerous. You should stay away from it. Don't read it. It's too bad.
If you want, you can actually test this out right now. If you go onto Twitter, go into Twitter Advanced Search and just write J.K. Rowling username and also in quotes, don't read it. You'll see all these people telling other people not to read it.
Because they have no way to argue against it. They're saying, this is too good. This is impossible to argue against because it's very compassionate and it's bulletproof. Therefore, the only solution is to just stay away from it. There's got to be a trick somewhere. It's the devil.
But the way Scientology works is, and correct me if I'm wrong anywhere here, Artie, it tells people on the lower levels certain things, but it keeps the crazy stuff for the people on the higher levels.
Like, this is what, when they're like, oh, why are Scientologists, like most Scientologists are low level. When you meet a normal person and a normal person is like, oh, well, why are they going along with it? Don't they know what happens at the higher levels? Because it's all online now? No, they won't look at it because they literally believe, like, if you look at like OT8 stuff and you're like OT1, you'll like get pneumonia and die. They literally believe that. So they're not going to look at it. So yeah. And
that's why I'm comparing it to this, because it's like the don't look at it thing with J.K. Rowling. It's
like when I first when I allowed someone gender critical to follow me on my, like, when I was like a radical trans person, I allowed them to follow me, and somebody screen capped that this person had followed me. Like, we hadn't even interacted with each other on Twitter. They had just followed me, and I hadn't had like the foresight to block them. The truth was, they followed me on purpose, and I followed them back so we could have a direct, like, a private conversation. But they were like, they like screen capped that I had allowed this person to follow me without blocking, and then they posted this all over Twitter, and they were like, look, now Benji is like associated with TERFs. And stuff, and so they tried to cancel me before they even talked to me. Then when they did talk to me, they were like, well, if you read what these people have to say and you talk to these gender critical people, you're going to lose your gender identity and you're going to not be trans anymore, and you're going to die, or you're going to kill yourself or something. They literally said this stuff to me. And that was the turning point when I was like, well, fuck this. I'm going to learn about everything I can about it to make my own arguments, my own decisions, my own opinions. Like, I'm not stupid. No, I've heard this from like Jason Begay. Also, he has like a 2 or 3 hour YouTube thing where he's literally just like, it's like I think like a very recently after he left Scientology, he just like sat down and talked to the camera and like told a bunch of experiences and how he got there and stuff. And I think he said a similar thing, that like he couldn't believe what he was seeing when they showed him that. Like, they bring you in this locked room and they give you like a briefcase, and you're allowed to only read it while it's in the briefcase in that room, and then you have to leave and you can't take the information with you. And like he also was like, he couldn't believe what he was being told. Yeah.
Oh, really? And now they're just being spread all, like, this kind of device or this kind of tactic is being used all over the world, and it's
the exact same tactic. Some people within Scientology, it's the same thing. If you follow the wrong person, somebody was declared a suppressive person, which is the same as being canceled, essentially. Even the terminology is like, there are echoes between each other. I think she followed Leah Remini, who was an ex-Scientologist who left, or she liked one of her tweets or Facebook posts or something. It was just something minimal like that. And just like that, somebody's monitoring your likes and your follows, and you literally get written up and report and get reported and canceled. It's the same thing with trans.
My interest in trans issues predated Maya's case by almost 2 years, during which I followed the debate around the concept of gender identity closely. I met trans people and read sundry books, blogs, and articles by trans people, gender specialists, intersex people, psychologists, safeguarding experts, social workers, and doctors, and followed the discourse online and in traditional media. On one level, my interest in this issue has been professional, because I'm writing a crime series set in the the present day, and my fictional female detective is of an age to be interested in and affected by these issues herself, but on another, it's intensely personal, as I'm about to explain. All the time, I've been researching and learning. Accusations and threats from trans activists have been bubbling in my Twitter timeline. This was initially triggered by when I started taking an interest in gender identity and transgender matters, I began screenshotting comments that interested me, as a way of reminding myself that I might want to research this later. On one occasion, I absentmindedly liked instead of screenshotting. That single I know, right, was deemed evidence of wrong thing. On one occasion, I absentmindedly liked instead of screenshotting. That single I know, right?
This is purity obsession.
It's the exact same thing. So exactly like that. Like they have what do they call them? These like information reports or something in Scientology.
Oh, knowledge reports. Yeah.
Knowledge reports. Yeah, where you'll write them like on your own family. Like if your sister, or your children. If your kid was like on Twitter and looked at Leah Remini's Twitter, you'll like write a knowledge report and send it to the higher ups, and they'll decide that your kid is suppressive and you have to like disinterest. So the exact same shit happens in the trans community. So you like say you're on Tumblr.
And even worse, children report their parents, and that's exactly what trans is happening with trans too, right?
But like it's like all these people on like Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Mino, all the social media where the young people are, they're like, oh yeah, I had a friend who's like trans or something, or like a queer of some kind, and they looked at a post by Graham Linehan. You have to you have to basically write a knowledge report and you post it publicly online, and then everybody knows to cancel this person. Like that's literally the exact same thing happens, but it's like self-enforced instead of reporting it to an authority. You like do it yourselves.
Yeah. It's the only way to maintain a magical belief system.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way to maintain.
That's why they don't want people to read J.K. Rowling's thing, because she makes some really good points. And then if you were to say like, oh, well, she makes this point, and I never thought about it this way. Like, can you explain why trans activists disagree with this? They won't have an answer. So they don't want you to ask the question in the first place. But it actually happens more though, that like the secretive investigation into stuff you're not supposed to look at happens more than we think. Like on Tumblr, for example, there's a lot of anonymous like kind of radfem GC accounts, and when you talk to them, they're like, oh yeah, all my friends are queer, and like all my Facebook and everything is queer, and I have just this like anonymous account to look at this stuff and discuss this stuff privately. Like and usually when you talk to those people, they're like, oh, how did you get started? Like, oh, well, someone hate shared a video by this person, or someone hate shared a blog by this person, and I realized they were actually making good points, so I wanted to investigate more. So like honestly, getting negative attention is not that bad of a thing, because the more people are exposed to you in any regard, the more likely they are to start asking questions themselves.